Okay, I guess we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Wizard's Table. I'm your host, Ken Allen, along with the wonderful, magnificent, highly educated, smarter than I am, Mistress B.
Hey guys, how's everybody doing?
You know, it feels like it's been forever since we've done a podcast.
That's because it's been almost a month. Last time I missed the podcast because my dog decided to run away and I spent 3 hours looking for her.
Well, that was an emergency. That was important. And, I know what it's like to have dogs and to love them and stuff like that. I raised two wolves, actually, Sage and Vanna, and they would run off sometimes and I would freak out.
Just a nightmare. But
It is
Elephant's safe and sound, and my little familiar is home with me.
Elephant. Yeah, because when you guys came up to visit me, you brought Elephant.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the other one's name?
Bella.
Bella. And they are just absolutely 100% hog wild. They love to have fun.
Absolutely.
And they are Jack Russells.
One's a Jack Russell, one's a rat terrier.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, hi, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the Wizard's Table right here on RU Media Network tonight. We got a really cool guy. I actually know him personally. I don't know if he wants to admit that or not.
I admit it. You've been to my house.
I have.
I've been Christmas cookies.
I have. Did you bake those yourself?
Yes.
Well, they were pretty damn good. Pretty damn good. Erich Brown, Frater Anubis, is a practitioner of ritual magic, ceremonial magic, and you've been doing this since you were a teenager.
Yes. Yeah. Originally, when I was really young, I started seeing what I didn't know what I was seeing. And it turned out to be sort of like energy fields. And so like I talked to my parents and they had my eyes checked and went all that. And so everything was fine. So I started doing a lot of research to try to figure out what was going on. And so I found the research into auras, energy fields, astral plane and all that. There's a guy named Kilner who invented aura vision goggles back in the early 19th century. It's really a very interesting study. Carillion photography, etc. And so I started studying energy magic, and that was pretty cool, but it only takes you so far. And then I found the Golden Dawn materials, like a lot of Israel Regarde's big, thick blocks that weren't really meant to instruct you. It was just like a data dump from the Golden Dawn. Here's what we were doing, blah. And I went pretty far with that until I got to some of the more advanced rituals, like a greater invoking ritual of the hexagram and the pentagram. I was like, well, what are these for? And so I was stuck. And then when I'm in my 20s, I met Frater Barabbas, who has a number of books. He has another one coming out, Elemental Energy Magic for Witches. And he's like, oh, it's easy. Those are eidolons, or a simulacrum, or what he used to call resonant field. You're creating a field of energy that resonates with the spirit you're wanting to invoke. So if you wanted to invoke Mercury, you would do a hexagram ritual for Mercury, and then you would invoke Mercury and he would feel very at home in this field of energy that you've manifested, and that style. And it went on from there, and it's been a lot of fun.
Now, unless you have something, Mistress B, I'm just going to kind of dive in here and there.
Go for it. You're good.
She does look beautiful, doesn't she, Teresa?
Yes,
Hi, Teresa. We love you, Teresa. Big shout out to Teresa and John Jerome of Ancestral Eyes podcast also tonight. So,
and Sean Gilmore.
And Sean Gilmore and Brian Mersall of our paranormal podcast. And I didn't bring it with me. I forgot to. But Brian sent me a card. A big, nice, really cool card. if I'd thought about it, I would have picked it up. Sorry, Eric. Hang on just a second. And it's like a congratulations card for the Wizards table. So
That's so sweet.
big shout out to Sean and to Brian for that also. But man, Eric, dude, you've been doing this stuff a long time, man. A long time. And would you say that I know you're more orthodox at ritual magic than I am. I take more of a chaos magician's approach, you know. I'm kind of like a dark horse, but would you say you're pretty orthodox with regards to the ritual magic in terms of keeping with the Golden Dawns?
Oh no, absolutely
okay.
not.
I feel better.
I'm very, very unorthodox. Well, first of all, in our tradition, Freda Barabbas wrote a bunch of books. The idea is that once you understand a ritual, you're supposed to rewrite it in your own words. Like if you've ever read the Arbitel, Sacred Book of Abramelin, the Mage, it talks about, like, I could give you prayers and things to say, but you would just copy them and it would be meaningless. The only prayers that matter are the ones that come from your own heart.
That's right.
So with all the rituals that I've been given, I rewrite them into my own ideas, my own words. And sometimes Freda Barabbas doesn't always approve of my interpretations. And when it comes to Enochian magic, I'm way out in left field. If you consider there's people who are very studious, who are originalists, who want to study John Dee's notes and do exactly what he was doing and recreate the magic flawlessly, I'm miles away from them. Although I greatly appreciate the research that they're doing and the materials that they're creating. In fact, I call myself a ritual magician rather than a ceremonial. If you consider like a ceremonialist, it would be somebody like a Catholic priest doing a marriage. They're working within a tradition. They have authority within that tradition. They need to do the ritual flawlessly for it to work. And then on the other end, like a chaos magician who is really looking at the meta and not all the details, and not trying to recreate something that was happening, say, in the Bronze Age. They're, from time, every ritual may be completely different. A ritual magician is somewhere in the middle, may or may not have authority within a tradition, or writing their own materials and having that material evolve. Because like a recent ritual I've been writing, every time I do it, I write a new iteration of it as I refine it. And when something happens in a ritual, like say a mistake is made, it doesn't mean the ritual is ruined, but it may have significant meaning. And
I think that's important. I think that's important that you bring that up, because so many people, I get so many messages. Oh, what if I mess up? What if this happens? What if that happens? Can you kind of, put them at ease about that?
If you are a Catholic priest, or say you're working in a Buddhist tradition and you have to do the ritual flawlessly for your audience at the marriage, at the funeral, or something like that, then it's very important. But as you're working through ritual and you are doing it for yourself or for your friends in a group or whatever, and you're learning and growing, when you make a mistake, you keep going. And then later you look back at that mistake and say, does this have some kind of meaning? Am I tripping up whenever I approach the fire altar? I have some kind of issue with fire. Or when I did this, something happened. Is there meaning in it? And you try to look at that. And sometimes no, maybe sometimes it's just that you need more practice, but sometimes it actually can tell you something about yourself and about your ritual results.
Similar to when, like, if you're shuffling a tarot deck and you happen to drop one, don't just put it back in the deck, pull it out and see what the message is, if there's any importance to it.
Yeah, because that's what you can't hold on to. And it pops out of your hand like that. Yes.
I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, I mean, and honestly, I've never really thought about it that way. Where are you having the hiccups at? Pay attention to those spots where you're having the hiccups. Nice. Can you talk a little bit about ESSG?
Okay, so Egregora Sancta Stella Gnostica.
Bless
Means
you.
the order of it's the order of the Gnostic star.
Say it again, Eric. Say it again.
Egregore Stella Sancta Stella Gnostica, ESSG. So in Latin, that would be the order of the Gnostic star. And Gnostic meaning we're seeking the gnosis. We're seeking this a form of enlightenment. The gnosis is the knowledge, the realization. And so Freda Barabas started this group. It combines a lot of Alexandrian Wicca with some very advanced ritual magic techniques. And of course, Alexandrian came out of the desire to make Wicca a little bit more robust in its ritual practices. So there's a lot of very advanced ritual techniques. And he published a lot of his stuff in this, Mastering the Art of Ritual Magic. Let me see where my camera
yes. Yes.
And so if you flip through these books, this is a book of ritual, but they're bare bones. You're supposed to take the ritual and write it in your own tradition. Like he will hand you a very generic, say, temple consecration. And then you're supposed to go in and say, okay, I really like Celtic. I will rewrite this temple consecration as a Celtic temple consecration using their creation of the world and their main four deities. And that is how I will consecrate my temple. And they'll say, instead of mixing salt and water to make the holy water to bless your temple, you might refer to it as the cauldron, whatever. You internalize it so that it has meaning for you. Because if it doesn't have meaning and excite you to do the work, then you won't be able to raise yourself to that level of excited spiritual state so that you'll be able to actually do the work.
Agreed. There's a saying that I really love, especially to people just beginning in magic. It's you're the magic in your magic. It's whatever sets your soul on fire, whatever gets you there. That's what your path is. Speaking of that, Sean has a really good question. He wanted to know, what is the best way for someone to get started in magic, and how does one choose between white, black, and chaos magic?
So we have a ritual magic study group here in Tallahassee, the Temple of Limitless Light. And we meet every Sundays from just about every Sundays from about 10:30 to 12:30. And we talk about ritual magic, and we have a lesson plan, etc. And Thursdays we have ritual night where we do ritual. And the book that we have chosen, it was really the first book I found on magic that wasn't like lighting candles or, basic, really, beginner magic. This is my favorite.
Great
The Middle
book.
Pillar by Israel Regardie.
Yeah.
This is where you should start.
Yep.
Because it is a very sane and practical and helpful starting point. Israel Regardie was sort of the person who popularized a lot of the Golden Dawn material, but he emphasizes psychology and magic, that you have to have an approach to magic that is psychological, that is about spiritual development. And the first few rituals in there are, of course, Kabbalistic Cross and the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram, which are the great places to start. They're your kata for practicing ritual magic. It contains all the elements of the most advanced rituals in one nice little tight package.
I have to tell you, I absolutely love that book. I have read that book front to back multiple times. It is a profound piece of work.
Oh, yeah. And the Ciceros did a really good job of
Yes.
sort of fleshing it out.
Yes, they did. Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram. I tell a lot of people, that's a good place to start because it's a ritual in and of itself. So why don't we talk about that?
Okay. So it's called lesser, not because it's lame, but because it's for general use. And when a lot of these things were written, it was like the late 1800s, early 1900s. And there was a lot of very flowery speech, which is great, but it can be hard to understand sometimes. So lesser meaning for everyday use, for general use, it's like a mantra or a daily practice that everyone can do whenever you want. And the Golden Dawn initiates were given this, it was like the only ritual they were given for the first 5 degrees. And they were supposed to do the invoking in the morning and the banishing in the evening to help them to have feelings and work with magical energies and symbols and stuff. And so it is, on the one hand, a banishing ritual. It cleanses the body, mind, and the environment of unwanted influences. So a lot of people start it before they do any ritual work. It's a microcosmic banishment. It's elemental. So it's this world around us, the world around us, society, you know, micro, where we live. And when the magician does the LBRP, he's standing on the earth, or she, they, I'll say they are standing on the earth, and they're in the center. The sun is moving around them, and they know where they are between the four directions, between the four archangels. And the macrocosmic work comes later, but you got to get this down first. And so it acts as a cleaner. It's a great big broom that cleans out your life, even physically. It's very cleansing physically to do.
Does the LBRP also take out positive energies? Is it like a complete clean slate? Because I know that with sage, it'll take out any energy anywhere, positive or negative. Is this the same way, or can you guide it with your intentions?
It is guided by intention, but by design, what it does is it banishes. Okay, so maybe we should walk through it a little bit and talk about the different steps.
Go for it. Go for it.
Okay, so
absolutely.
The first thing that we do, and the very first thing that any magician should learn, is how to center and ground and connect with their higher self. So we learn the Kabbalistic cross, which I just used it on a very advanced ritual the other night. I used it like 4 or 5 times during different stages of it. So we want to, before we do any work, connect to the higher self. So above our head, we reach up to the light, to the source of the best part of ourselves, Eta, thou art, and then bring the light down, the energy, ground it into the earth, pointing down into the center of the planet, Malkuth, the kingdom, thou art, the kingdom, and then Vegadula, which is the glory, the Gevura, and the power, and then Leolam, forever and ever, amen. Thou art the kingdom, glory, and the power forever. And so, along with the visualizations of seeing yourself grow to enormous height, with the earth like tiny beneath your feet, this brilliant light above your head that you're pulling down in a beam of light and grounding into the earth, and then the blue light of Hesed, which is, it's Kabbalistic, so we're going to talk about Kabbalah, right? Hesed is Jupiter. It's a blue energy, and you use that in LBRP. So literally means unselfish love. And then Gebura, the power, which is the limitation, the force on the right hand. And then we stabilize. So we've brought the power down, we've balanced it between the 2 poles, stabilized. Now we're ready to do something. We're powered up and ready to go. So the LBRP, the first thing that we do is we go to the east and we draw a banishing ritual of earth. So here's our pentagram diagram. I printed this out so we'd have something to look at. And you see earth is down here. And the standard practice is to banish by drawing it away from. And I like to go over the last bar. That was something Frater Barabas told me, and it really adds something.
So
you face east, you hold your head straight, and you look east, and you follow with your eyes. So you draw the banishing earth pentagram slowly and intentionally. And then the classic is you charge it by the visualization is that you see the word flowing into you, reaching your feet, and when it reaches your feet, it bounces out again, and you reach forward to the sign of the emperor, sign of Horus. So then you would vibrate Yehovah. So by doing that, you've created this pentagram, and you want to do it as the blue flaming light, right? And you've charged it with the Yod He Vah He. Whoosh. So I've banished air, right? The earthy part of air. Banish, banish, banish with my big broom. What can start to manifest there? Raphael. Because Raphael's been there the whole time, but you can really see him. So you banished air, your negative thought forms, perhaps, ideas and things that are troubling you. You go to the south, you repeat the same motion, the blue flaming pentagram, Adonai. Oh yeah, and you make the sign of silence when you come back. Active, passive. Active, energizing, passive, protecting. And so I banish fire, passions, and things that interrupt me, and they're disturbing thoughts or emotions, perhaps. What manifests? Mikhail. So Raphael, whose name means God has healed. Mikhail means one who is as God, God's right hand, God's reflection. You go to the west, you repeat it for Gabriel. Hie, which is which basically means I am that I am, like the burning bush in the Bible. And so I banish water, troubling emotions, worries, anxiousness, things like that. Whoosh, go away, you. What manifests? Gabriel. Whoosh. Strength of God. And then you carry it around to the north. And you do there, you do Agela, which is Adonai, Kippur, Olam Amen. Basically, it's a Notarakon. It's Lord, Thou art mighty forever, which is a prayer that comes from a much larger prayer, which comes from a whole practice, a whole Jewish practice, but it's narrowed down to just Agela, like the tip of the spear. We banish earth and we get Uriah, which is the light of God. So then you return to the center, and there you do with the outstretched arms. You say, before me, and then you vibrate Raphael behind me, Gabriel at my right hand, Mikael at my left hand, Uriel. For around me flame the pentagrams, and in the column shines a six-rayed star. And then you do the Kabbalistic cross again to finish. So you're at that point, you're visualizing these 4 flaming pentagrams of a bluish fire for the unselfish love of Hesed. And behind them, these great archangelic beings, however you wish to visualize them. I kind of like sort of the classic thing, with the post-Raphael sort of Renaissance look. But
Right.
it doesn't really matter. Whatever works for you. And then in the column, in the space I've just cleared, is the 6-rayed star that's coming down. So I'm standing in the column of the 6-rayed star, which is the macrocosm, the greater world that's out there. I'm standing on the earth. I'm surrounded by, I've just did 4 3-letter names, 3-syllable names of God. So I've created a zodiac. I've got the 4 archangels around me. I'm protected. The area is cleaned. And the energy that flows in is from heaven, from the greater universe, the macrocosm. So it doesn't necessarily banish good things. It cleans out everything and lets you experience the highest qualities of both the 4 elements and of the macrocosmic elements to come in. And so that's why people were doing this like for years, as to get ready before the real, the heavy ritual magic that they needed to be able to be exposed to and handle these sorts of forces. Anyway, I've talked for a long time.
No, keep going. No, this is good. Because I get so many people wanting to know the ins and outs of the LBRP, and I just never have time to sit down and talk about it. Please keep going. Unless you got something, Mistress B.
No, I'm really enjoying this. I haven't done the LBRP yet, and I'm really liking
Girl,
that it's so
good.
intuitive. That a lot of this just makes logical sense. And I think that that's something that's so nice about some of these like ritual practices, is that a lot of them, it's not anything super mystical or super esoteric or anything. It makes sense to do all those things. It's simple numbers and simple syllables, and surrounding yourself in, 4 for the elements and 3 or 9 or 12 for a lot of other things. Like the numerology of it and the logic behind it is so nice.
I love the LBRP. I try to do it every day. I mean, there are days I can't get around to it for whatever reason, but it doesn't matter. I mean, nobody's really judging me, as to whether
and if you
I'm
judge
doing
yourself, it just makes it worse.
Exactly. Absolutely. And I'm guilty of that sometimes. I'm guilty of that, but yeah, absolutely. The LBRP it's great. It's amazing. I like to do like a cleansing bath, a powerful cleansing bath. Folk magic is a big deal in my life. So I use like kosher salt, 3 pinches of kosher salt. I'll use Florida water, just that simple. Get into the tub, get out, do the LBRP, whatever. So yeah, damn right, Eric. Rock it out, baby.
And so, have you ever taken a martial arts class when you were a kid or anything like that?
I actually took Kung Fu for a little while. I
Did
was
you have
actually
a
badass.
Did you have a kata? Did you have a form to practice?
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's the kata, the form for ritual magic. Even the most complex rituals that we do are composed of the same elements that you're practicing in the LBRP. We're drawing symbols in the air. Why? Because we want to tune the space. We're not really drawing it in the air. We're drawing it on the astral plane.
Mm-hmm.
That's why originally they say use a dagger, which is fine. Use a dagger if you like a dagger. Use your hand if that's all you have. But what's really cool, especially when you're first starting, go in a darkened room and use a stick or 2 or 3 of incense so that you can see the tracers in the dark.
You know what I did?
That'll help you visualize.
I think you saw I posted it on one of my pages. I actually took a quartz crystal that's this long, right? Mm-hmm. And I took a small flashlight and I literally scotch taped the flashlight to the bottom of the quartz crystal. And I started doing the LBRP with that quartz crystal. Mm-hmm. Man, you talk about tracers in a pitch black room. Ooh, Lord Jesus.
Oh, yeah. And that makes it so much easier to visualize the pentagrams, because what you want to be doing is you want to be able to see these things in your imagination, in your mind, and visualize them around you.
Real quick, Sean Gilmore says, I have a paranormal investigation at an old nunnery. What do you suggest I bring to connect with spirit, Eric?
A paranormal at an old nunnery to connect with spirit. Well, if it's a nunnery, how about a rosary? I would think, right?
Yeah, I think a rosary would be good. I think that there are a lot of crystals out there that are for communication, especially like I can't remember the word right now, like mental communication and communication with the things beyond. I can't remember any of them off the top of my head, but there's a lot out there. I'll message you some, Sean, when we get off.
So yeah, he could use crystals. He could use the rosary, like Eric said. Hell, you could even start. You could even buy a little cheap copy of the Catholic Catechism and start, reading out of that, and it right there in the middle of the nunnery. And Teresa's right. Holy water, absolutely.
Right. Yeah, you could bring and make your own.
Mm-hmm. So Eric, would you be willing to do the Kabbalistic cross and the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram for us?
Sure, I could do that. I would need to take off the headset I put on because you guys were getting
we were getting some feedback or whatever. But I'll mute myself, and if you want to go ahead and do that and let everybody see the whole thing from start to finish, if you're cool with that.
Yeah, of course.
Awesome. So Eric is going to do the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram.
Yep.
Starting with the Kabbalistic cross. And the Kabbalistic cross is in Hebrew, right, Eric?
Looks like we're having some technical difficulties. Hold on.
We'll give him time. That's one of the things I wanted to do with this show, is allow people to do some magic, some ceremony, some ritual stuff. Me and you talked about that, Mistress B.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I think I figured it out. So you can still hear me?
Yes.
All right. Okay, let me stand up. Usually you stand up to do this practice. So today this direction is going to be east. And I'll do it in place and just turn, since that'll be the easiest way to do it. Because you can do it just turning in place. If you have room to move around a circle, that's great, because movement like that can generate a lot of power and ritual meaning, whether you're going clockwise or counterclockwise. But if all the space you have is just where you're standing, you can just rotate in place, and that's completely fine. You can also do it completely in your imagination, and that's actually considered to be superior. That's referred to as doing the work in the body of light. So first you start with the Kabbalistic cross. You stand comfortably, knees a little bent, back straight. Belly breathing, you gotta breathe from the Dandian. It's another skill that you should acquire. It'll help you in all aspects of your life. Then you reach up above your head to the center of the universe, or to the sun, whatever works. You feel this great ball of white light, this glowing white light, that see it as the highest aspects of yourself, your connection to the source of all. Grab a little bit of it with your fingers and then vibrate. Down to the earth, grounded in the center of the planet, so you're standing in a beam of light. Malkuth. Vegetula. Vegabura. Leolam. Amen. Yehovah. Adonai. Ehi. Agila. Before me, Raphael. Behind me, Gabriel. At my right hand, Mikael. At my left hand, Uriel. For around me flame the pentagrams, and within the column shines a six-rayed star. Eta, Malkuth, Ula, Igawura, Elam. Amen.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Glorious.
So that's the beginning. That's the basic kata of ritual magic. Contains all the elements. It contains the energy model of magic, right? Because we're working with energy. We're working with 4 elements. We're drawing pentagrams of a blue energy that we're visualizing. Contains the spirit model, right? Because we're invoking the archangels. Once we've cleaned the area, the 4 archangels who are always there. I mean, anytime you want to see Raphael, you just look to the east and everything there is Raphael. So we've involved the energy model, we've involved the spirit model, and we've also involved the psychological model because of the visualizations and the holy names that have meaning to us when we study them. Adonai for Lord, Hiye, I am that I am, Agela. We're combining the various models of magic into a synergistic practice. And as we do more and more advanced magic, it's just the same techniques. Because, you know what they say, right? Fundamentals aren't the most important thing. They're the only thing, right? So you practice these fundamentals with the LBRP, and then the most advanced ritual you may take hours to comprise is just going to be these components combined and layered, just like an amazing cake or something like that. You know, the simplest things combined in unique ways to create ritual meaning, which creates ritual power, to create that experience that gives you the transformation.
Eric, let's talk about the middle pillar ritual.
Oh yeah, the middle pillar.
Yeah, we're having that echo.
Okay, I'll put my little headset back on.
Sorry. Let's talk about the middle pillar because can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, because what I like to do, and I don't know if you do it or not, but I like to do the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, and then if time permits, go straight into the middle pillar ritual.
Yes.
So can we talk about that a little bit? Because
sure,
I love that middle pillar, baby.
Okay, so I printed out a little picture that it might help because I knew we were going to be talking about Kabbalah. So I don't know how well this just shows up. You see there's a person here, right?
Yeah.
And then around them is the tree of life. You have Heather, Bina, Hakma. They've got Daath. So, and then the middle pillar, it's the center of the tree going down. Here's one of my personal journals with the tree in it. I don't know. That might show up a little bit better.
Take a screenshot of that. Take a screenshot of that. We're going to steal his shit.
Oh yeah, you can. You've already had. I think you have a picture of
this. I do.
But so the middle pillar, you imagine yourself standing in the tree, just like we were for the Kabbalistic cross. The Kabbalistic cross, we're doing Kether to Malkuth, to Hesed, to Gebura, and then sort of stabilizing and grounding the middle pillar, you're doing, of course, the middle safra down the tree. And it is a way of generating and experiencing a great deal of magical energy. In Eastern thought, and it's great everybody should cross train. You bring power up from the Muladhara chakra, which is an important skill everyone should learn who's on a spiritual path. But in this Western, we bring the power down. So first we vibrate Ehiye for Keter, which is the source. Yehovah Eloah for Da'at, which is the Da'at isn't really a real safra. It's a mirror that the magician has to pass through, kind of like Alice going to the Wonderland to get through to the higher worlds. Yehovah Eloah Da'at for Tipreth, the heart center, the solar plexus. Shaddai El Hai is the Muladhara chakra in this system because it goes with Yesod. And then Adonai Ha-Aretz for grounding for the Malkuth. So you're bringing this power down using these Hebrew names of God, vibrating them in order down and then grounding it in the earth. And then once you've created this circuit between the highest and, of course, the center of the earth, right? You got to always connect to the highest and then ground it because you have to complete the circuit. Otherwise, it'll just poof, won't go anywhere. Then you can kind of circulate the energy around. You can bring it over, around yourself, backwards, around, sideways, have it wrap around yourself or go up and rain down around you. So you start getting experience working with these energies and being able to move them around through will. And it's very cleansing and very empowering and really will wake you up. It's a very good start before you do a lot of ritual work, especially if you're going to be doing working with doing a lot of energy magic, like in our system, the ESSG, we do a lot of resonant field magic. And so you want to pull up a lot of energy to sort of give you that nitrous charge. So so you can start building all the sacred geometry and everything that you need before you do the invocations. But yeah, middle pillar is great. It can give people a Kundalini experience too. If they do it too much.
I can totally see that. Yeah. Maybe I need to start doing it a lot more.
Well, that's the thing. It's like a lot of times people will do it and they'll vibrate each name 10 times and they'll get headaches and problems. And it's like, just vibrate it twice. See how you feel.
Usually do anywhere from 3 to 4, but yeah, I don't want a headache. So
right. Yeah. People think more is better. It's not always the case.
That's right. Absolutely. So Enochian magic.
Oh yeah, Enochian magic.
That's your thing, right?
Kind of. It's an adjunct to the sort of the ritual work that I do.
Why don't you tell the audience what that is? There's a lot of people that don't even know what that means, that word Enochian. Or, Enochian in magic. They don't even know. They have no clue whatsoever.
Okay, so I didn't really know what it was either when I first started.
Mm-hmm.
We started back in the day. Frater Barabbas introduced me to the elemental octagram. I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. Imagine an LBRP, but you're doing an invoking form, right? So instead of banishing earth in all directions, say you go around, you're banishing air or invoking air in all directions, right? So now I've created a field of elemental air energy around me. Now I'll say I tied that to a 5th point below the temple. So, which is spirit, right? So the 5th point, 4 + 1, 5, pentagram, is the spirit point. So the energy's whipping up the bottom of the temple and then rotating around, right? So all this whoosh, elemental air energy. Now, pretty cool. Now you take the same ritual and you do it as a mirror image on the top of the temple. And let's say I did fire. So now I've got fire energy whipping down counterclockwise, and air energy spinning up clockwise to the center of the temple. Now you do one further pass and you pull all that energy together. You let it collide. It sparks. It's really great. Boom. I've created a field of energy that's fire of air. Right? It would be, since we have 4 elements, right? 16. They have a direct correlation to the tarot cards, the court cards. So he would be the King of Wands. He would be fire of air, right? He's like the lightning bolt that gives you invention and new ideas. Great. But you can also, at that point, invoke an Enochian angel, because you've created a field of energy that perfectly matches one of the 16 Sephirotic angels that have the same correspondence. You know, in Enochian, there's a whole elemental correspondences. And so that's how I got into it. And I was like, wow, this is great. I can create this powerful field of energy that sparks and just crackles. And then I can call this angel in, and it fills it with an intelligence, and I can commune with it. And then I can work with this being. I was like, oh, that's sweet. It wasn't until much later that a lot of really good books started coming out explaining all this stuff. So in the 1580s, there was a guy named John Dee, who was a famous scientist of his time. He was the Isaac Newton of his day. He was famous for a lot of his navigation. He worked with the guy Mercator that came up with the Mercator map drawing that you can still see today. So he's a famous guy. And he basically absorbed all the scientific knowledge of his day. And so he wanted to do spiritual practices and gain the secrets. And so he and Kelly, who was his scryer, they worked as a pair. Sort of master of ceremonies was Dee, and Kelly was the visionary, the scryer. And Dee would ask Kelly questions, and when he was in a trance state. And so what he was after was a type of political magic. He wanted to be able to do, because he was working for Queen Elizabeth as her spy. Right?
That's right. Yep.
And so he was trying to get this political magic, and he also wanted to get the book of Enoch, which was lost at the time. It was found much later in Ethiopia, because Ethiopia was this treasure trove of apocryphal biblical documents, because Christianity was capsulated there for centuries. And he also wanted to learn the original language spoken in the Garden of Eden, because they believed if they could find out what the original language was before the fall of Babel, then they would have this power over nature like Adam had. So that's what he was doing. And to that end, they did a lot of prayers. They would pray until they went into a trance, and then they would talk with the 4 archangels that we just invoked: Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, Uriel, and then all the angels that worked for them, basically. So he was after this political magic, so he could influence other countries and do all this political intrigue. But what the angels gave him was a map of the circuitry of the mind of the creator. And the Enochian language, which he would have called Adamic, which is what we use when an incredibly trance-creating language. We only have a very small sample of it, and a lot more too. He gave multiple systems of magic, but it's all based on the elements and the planets. So I kind of came in it from the side. It didn't really realize the vast openness, the qualities of this system of magic. So the main piece of it that most people work comes in 2 parts. There's this big, huge table of letters, and they divide the table into 4 quarters, right? So 4 means 4 elements, so fire, water, air, and earth. And then you can take each one of those, divide it into 4s, fire, water, air, and earth. So that's the 16. So when I do an elemental octagram, I'm activating basically a quarter of one of those tables. And then there's all sorts of ways to derive names of individual angels and hierarchies and things like that within it. It sounds really technical, but but it's really pretty straightforward. And there's a lot of really good books on it now. Really like Lon Milo Duquette's Enochian Spirit Magic.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. I'm right there with you. I
Makes it
bought
very approachable.
two copies of his book, of that
Mhm.
book. Two copies.
Here, I wanted to talk about it, so I brought it out. And there's
Yeah.
a new version now that has more words or something in it.
Yeah, I
But
have that one and I have the other one. But yeah.
now we have to say at this point, he's not an originalist. So
No.
if this, I'm only recommending as a way to get your feet wet because it's a very approachable, the
Yes.
angelic alphabet. It's a very approachable, not boring thing to read. That's very exciting and fun. And
It's a great book.
It's a great book. And that would be a good introduction. And then, of course, eventually you want to look at the original materials. So let me find. Oh, yeah, here's one of the tables. Here's the elemental table of Earth. Woo!
Yeah. Look at that bad boy.
It looks like a lot, but so you're dealing with the circuitry of creation,
Mhm.
of the mind
Right.
of the creator.
Yep.
And the names themselves, each individual letter is a unit of energy and intelligence, and they hook up together to create even more complex beings and more complex beings, and they kind of resolve into, again, 4 great names, right? Of course, it comes down to.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. Essentially, what this is similar to like the coding or the building blocks of everything of the universe and of angels and their magic. It's breaking it down from a being to show you like kind of where that comes from and which elements it corresponds to and the elemental kind of crossovers.
Yes, imagine if all of creation was a crystal and you held that up to the sun and the rainbow came out the other side. So you could appreciate how it broke down and how the individual pieces of it were. And the reason that it's good to sort of break it down so you can experience these individual parts is that those pieces are also you. You're part of that creation. And by getting it down to individual parts, like say, how about the watery part of air, the artist?
Mhm.
And Alapar Omebe is her name, the Queen of Swords. You can experience that wave, that intelligence, that emotional ecstasy of creativity, of artistry. And you can commune with that aspect of yourself and of the universe because it's all you, right? Satvam Asi, the you and the universe are one thing. So you partake of these same qualities. So you may be able to commune with the universal aspect of creativity, of artistry. But at the same time, you're going to see that aspect, you're going to learn about yourself because it's all tied together, right? Like if you think about the Big Bang, everything was at one point touching everything else. And as the universe expanded, everything was, like pool balls, like bouncing off each other. Your existence relies on the existence of all the different stars and galaxies and nebulae and everything in the universe. You couldn't be here if they weren't. But the other thing is, it's vice versa. None of the stars and galaxies and suns and nebulae could exist if you weren't here. If you weren't here now having this conversation,
That's right.
their existence relies on that as well. So we're all tied together as a single great thought.
So these are not only building blocks to learn about different entities and different sorts of magic, but they're also to delve deeper into you and your understanding of the universe.
And yourself.
Yeah.
Because out of this process, there has to be spiritual development. I mean, the ultimate goal, well, your black belt goal, your first goal is to get the knowledge and conversation of the holy guardian angel.
Yep.
Which is, the finest version of yourself, the highest version of you that acts as a mediator between you and the source itself. To be able to have connection with the perfect version of you, the one that exists before, all the trauma and everything that went through in life, the clean you, the perfect you. So to act as your guidance, so then you can understand your true will, what it is you're here to do. And, you can have that spiritual development, that attainment. And that's really the ultimate goal of magic. Because once you're in line with your true will, then you know what magic to work. And Crowley says that until you understand what your true will is, all magic is black magic. You don't really know what you're doing. And so when you are in alignment like that, when you have this sort of spiritual development, you'll know what magic to work. You'll know what you want to investigate, what you want to work on, what you want to understand, both without the universe and within yourself.
So how would you go about really discovering that? How do you utilize this to do that? Do you just kind of go through each of them, and explain how that works a little more to me?
Well, like we have our class and we have a group, and you want to work with other people so that you stay sane, right? I mean, because the twins are always, you have to look out for delusion and obsession.
That's right.
Right. So you have to be aware of them. So you start by doing the LBRP and sort of getting in touch with these different elements and these divine forces. And that sort of helps you sort of gain clarity and balance. And then there are other things that you study. You want to study the tarot. You want to start building your language, your alphabet, so that you sort of have a different model of the universe. And basically, you pray. You ask that the source send its holy guardian angel to you for guidance. And then you follow your intuition. There are steps by steps. There is a grading process, like the degrees and different things that you learn at each degree to sort of help you guide you on your way. And it's usually an elemental progression. But ultimately, you look within yourself to know what to do next for that guidance.
Okay, cool. So there's no 12-step program for this. It's literally what you're drawn to.
Well, there is guide rails. There is a process of things to learn in a certain order, but ultimately you have to learn to listen to your inner guru. The initiate has to kill the initiator at some point. Like they say, if you meet the Buddha on the road, you should kill him. Right? Well, the idea is that you don't want to get stuck in dogma, but there are guideposts. There are like in the Golden Dawn, the OTO, and in the ESSG, there is a series of rituals that you learn in a certain order to help you, and then you have a community to talk to bounce ideas off of, and but largely it's up to your inner guidance, because that's what the goal is that you find the inner guru, the HGA, that's going to become your teacher.
To know yourself.
Yes.
Teresa says, and I agree. Teresa, you're a wise woman.
So it's kind of almost like ballet, where you learn all the steps and you learn them in a progression. And as your skills grow, eventually you get to a point where you're not following a routine. You're not going through them in an order. You're just dancing. You're listening to your music, and you're moving on your own.
Right. Yeah, I could say that. I haven't taken ballet, but
you know what? Speaking of ballet, this is just way off in the left field, and I don't care. Whatever. Meh. Somebody told me I should take ballet. I'm like, what in the damn hell do I look like taking ballet? Could you imagine me out there trying to do ballet and shit? What in the hell would that look like, me out there trying to do ballet?
I can see you doing ballet. Why not?
No, man.
I'd pay a lot of money to see you try.
I'm too damn Southern for that.
It's just dance. I mean, what's his name? Kung Fu. He took ballet to make his Kung Fu better.
Yeah, I know, but man, I can't. I couldn't imagine putting on leotards and trying to dance around and twirl and shit. Go ahead, Mistress B, if you got anything else. Sorry, Eric.
You mentioned earlier that you see auras.
Right. Yes.
I have always wanted to be able to do that, and I was wondering, I know that yours was present really early on, and so it wasn't something that you had to develop, but in trying to strengthen it and leaning into it, how did you open yourself up to see that? Because I'm really empathetic and I can feel them, but I can't see them. And I would love to be able to.
Same way.
Well, I kind of personally had a hack because I didn't really have to earn it. It just was there. So when I put my hand in front of me and I think about blue energy, I can just draw it. And so what I would suggest perhaps is to simply try to see the energy fields in a darkened room. They're easier to see in the dark. Sunlight tends to bleach them out, but they're
Mhm.
there. Um, Fluorescent lights are really bad. The new LED lights don't seem to be quite as bad. But I would imagine meditation, learning like a good Shine type practice of meditation, and willing yourself to see them, looking at your hands, like holding your hands together, and see if you can see the energy passing between your fingertips. There's a lot of exercises like that that you can do. Also, like when we're working within a group, it's something that you can develop over time if you're doing a lot of energy magic work, like the elemental, like if doing the LBRP as an invoking rather than a banishing ritual. If practice visualization. Eventually you'll see them because you're already seeing them. They're already there. It's just
Mhm.
you're not really noticing them, but they exist and they're part of your consciousness and they are affecting your behavior because we all are aware of this energy that's flowing between us. But I don't think it automatically registers in everyone's visual centers. But it doesn't really need to for you to be an effective energy worker. But it did make things easier for me.
Well, a question that I have, someone asked me earlier today before you came on. They wanted to know if practicing ritual magic would allot them a degree of psychic ability.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like for instance, we just recently did a ritual more advanced because it's a planetary combined with an element. So we go around the temple, we do an invocation for an element, and then we do a planetary invocation, then we fuse them. And then we call an Enochian senior in, a more powerful being, Mercury of water. And that being is supposed to give you sort of empathic insights into emotion and things like that. Yeah. I mean, most of the magic that you do in this sort of path is about enhancing your own abilities,
Yeah.
your own spiritual evolution. So becoming more empathic, becoming more psychic, clairvoyance, and all the different cities that you want to develop, they're all there for you to develop. You just don't want to get caught up in them, like thinking they're so great that they're the whole point, because
Yeah.
they're really more side effects of
Mm.
the spiritual growth, right? You don't want to obsess or
That's right.
delude.
Yeah. Right. And that's not hard. It's not hard for that to happen, especially to a beginner.
Right. When you have your first big spiritual experience and you think, "Oh, I'm so great."
Yeah.
I've had this vision of the unity of all, and it's like, yeah, we kind of all have had that, but
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
and there are
And
degrees to everything, right?
yeah.
Throughout your life, you may have the same sort of vision at different levels as you progress. Oh yeah, the other part, which brings me to the other part of Enochian magic, the rising on the plains. That's a if you wanted to look at like sort of two divisions, the sort of elemental planetary magic over here, and the aethers, the rising on the plains aspect. Um, that is the two, broadly speaking, parts of Enochian magic. And rising on the plains is actually pretty simple. There's only one Enochian call that you have to do. I mean, you would want to banish the temple, like you could use the LBRP for that, or something more complicated if you'd like. And there's you enter a trance state, which all this work requires you the ability to enter a trance state. And there's one long Enochian call, and you just insert the name of the aether, the layer, and the governors that are going to be there. They're going to meet you there and be your guides. And so what you can imagine is like Earth at the center, and then layers like an onion going out, different planes of existence. Like at the very highest, you can imagine the creator like fell asleep and had a dream. That would be the first aether. And then within that dream, it fell asleep and had another dream. That would be the second, and on and on and on, all the way down to the 30th year, which is the one the closest to Earth, Tex, the one you start with. It's a dream within 30 other dreams. And so you pass through these aethers trying to see how high you can get. And in each one, you have some kind of a vision that helps you to understand yourself and your life and gives you some sort of spiritual insight. And eventually they become really blurry and difficult, and you're like, okay, that's as far as I can go. But that's the other half of that.
Okay. So
sorry.
No, you're good. That's awesome, man. No, you can talk all you want. Jump in anytime you want to. That's fine. We want our guests to speak. It's
right.
About you guys. It's about you. It's not about us.
Well, I just wanted to bring that in because that's the other half of Enochian magic. Do you want to talk about some of the tools of Enochian?
Yes, absolutely. I would love to talk about the tools. I do have a few questions, but let's go into the tools first.
Okay, so the first thing is you have to say you don't need any of it. The system works fantastically. It's so powerful, and the Enochian angels are so friendly and so generous, and I mean, they're so generous it's almost embarrassing sometimes how much they'll share with you, and they'll give you far more than you would ever think to ask for. But Dee and Kelly were instructed by the angels to make a set of tools in order to make their practice more effective.
Yes, they were.
If you into it for a while, you would probably want to make these tools yourself. Go here. We were just using a lot of this stuff that's covered up. So the first thing is the Pele rig. We've had ours made out of brass.
Yes,
but
yeah, I've seen those on you guys in person.
But we also have paper ones that we give out to our group.
That's what I have. I have a paper one.
Right. And if you can't make a real magic ring out of paper, you'll be unable to make one out of gold.
Absolutely.
So, the Pele ring, which is supposedly the Ring of Solomon. And imagine, I mean, the only reason we know that Dee was doing all this crazy stuff is that they found his journals. Some were buried in the yard and some were in the bottom of an old chest that had somehow survived fires. And a lot of it ended up being liners for pie pans before they realized it was whose notebook this was. So in there, it talks about how Michael, the archangel, said, oh, okay, let me give you this cool thing. And he took his flaming sword and he held it over the table, and this flaming sword opened up like scissors, and this ring fell out. And, and Michael tells him, this is the ring. Lo, this is it. This is the ring that even the angels scarce know. So Pele rig, print one out, wear it. And then the layman, which I printed out and laminated. I might make a more complicated one at some point. So the layman is an imperfect version of the holy table, which let me see if I can get that in the frame. All right. So there's the holy table behind me. Now, some people say the holy table should be covered with red silk, and some say a red and green flashing silk cloth. So I went with the red and green because I did see in the original source material. So this acts sort of like the dashboard cover, the dust cover for your holy table.
And there it is. Beautiful.
Wow.
It's amazing. Yeah.
So
it's a lot of work.
Oh, yeah, but you don't have to do it all at once. Let's see. So here's the actual holy table itself. Here, let me go ahead and I'll just take everything off of it.
Now, is that made of wax?
The sigillum, yeah.
Yeah.
So the table itself is made out of wood with gold leaf, and you can see the lettering on it. The same lettering as and the layman. So the layman you wear over your chest as a way to connect to the holy table, which is a perfect representation of the letters. And it's a long story, but it's in Lon Milo's Vision Magic. There's tables of letters that transform. So you have this holy table, and this was a common piece of equipment back in the Renaissance area for magicians. They would have a holy table with sacred words written on it. Of course, it's all in, Enochian.
Mm-hmm.
And then the 7 ensigns of creation. So 7 ensigns, of course, written in Enochian on 10. I didn't engrave. I just did the lettering myself by hand. My hands shake too much for me to really be able to successfully engrave something. So there's 7, which represent all things 7-ish, right? So we have the 7 planets, 7 days of the week, the 7 days of creation, and 7's really important in Enochian. So there are 21 letters in Enochian and 3 groups of 7. So yada, yada, yada. So these are used both in planetary type magic and a lot of other things. So that's part of the circuitry that you're building. And then the common tool was also called the sigillum.
Mm-hmm.
This is the sigillum de Ameth. So this acts like a high gain antenna, basically, for connecting with the spiritual sources and such things. So Dee and Kelly were told to make one by the angels, and they went and looked in their books of grimoires, and they said, oh, well, there's a whole bunch in here. Which one should we make? So the angels were like, okay, look, we'll tell you how to make a new one. So you can see around the outer rim, there's a bunch of letters and numbers. It probably isn't going to show up very well, but you can see it if you look it up online. All the inner names are generated by counting clockwise till you get to a letter without a number, and then counterclockwise. So you go to generate the names, like you're unlocking a combination lock,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically what you're doing until you have all these holy names that are built up here that build sort of a 3-dimensional basket. You can imagine like all the names like building up to make sort of a container above the sigillum itself, and which where you place your scrying tool.
And there it is. Yeah.
So that your scrying tool is placed on this high gain antenna with the symbolic attachments to heaven and earth, and then you're attached to the table via your layman, which you wear, and the ring, which is probably gives you authority. I think that's basically the idea. So these are like some of the tools that you can create, and you can also order them online. It's more fun to make them yourself. I personally would rather have a tool that was somewhat crude that I made myself.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
other people like things like laser printed and stuff, and that's fine. I wouldn't want to tell other people how to do their thing, but I enjoy the work.
But I agree with you. I think that it doesn't matter if it's beautiful or if it's crude or whatever. If you make it yourself and you put all that intention and time into it, to me, that holds a little more value. Just my personal opinion.
I think so too. But some people are very intimidated by the idea of making stuff like that. And I don't want them to feel bad.
Yeah. Well, okay. I'll be right back. It's my bladder. Sorry.
All right.
You got it, girl?
Yeah, I got it. So I'm really interested in these tools and in the ways that you use them. Like, what's the significance of some of them being circle and some of them being square?
That's a good question. And, to be honest, a lot of things we don't really understand about the circles and the squares and some of the patterns of them. And some of that we just don't know. It's some kind of psychic circuitry that was passed on to Dean Kelly, and not everything was really well explained. Now, some of the things are really well defined, like the way that the ensign that you wear in your chest and the letters on the table, they both come from the same source. They're just transformed in different ways. So the table itself is sort of a perfect representation, and the one on you is imperfect. You're an imperfect being, but you're going to be perfected through this process, etc. The 7 ensigns are probably the most mysterious part of all the tools. We don't really understand exactly why some are square and some are round. Since there's 7, we attribute them to the planets, and that's probably a pretty good guess because all things 7-ish. Whenever you have 7 of something. But they originally were given to them in English, and then they were told to replace the characters with the Enochian. And the letter B, which that V-shaped symbol, that's a the. It's actually B in Enochian, and that seems to repeat a lot. So, and think of it as some sort of psychic circuitry. And they also specified 10.
Okay.
Of all the metals. They could have said gold. They said either write it on the table or make them out of 10. And so, having created these are also very useful for planetary magic, since they have this is for instance, this one's for Mars. So whenever I work with Mars energy, I can use this talisman, and also you could use it for something to do with Tuesday, if you wanted.
So is the table always set up the same way, or can you manipulate the table to align with what you're working with?
Traditionally, you would set up the table the same way. And it's sort of like a big circuit board that's sitting there, and you would activate it by doing different chants and stuff.
Okay, so you got to plug everything in the way that it goes for it to work.
But I manipulate it, of course, right? So if I'm going to do a planetary rite, I'm going to pull out the talisman that I've created that goes with that particular planet, and maybe place it on top of the sigillum, along with, for instance, this is the sigil for the Enochian Senior that we worked with this week. I'll place that there as well. So my intuition tells me that it's okay to manipulate the circuitry in this manner because it has meaning. I'm not randomly moving things around. I'm moving things around with intention and meaning. These are Mars things. Let's put all the Mars things in the middle and focus our energies that way. So to me, that has meaning.
And that intuition is a byproduct of working this magic too.
Right.
So in essence, you're turning the circuit board into a switchboard and channeling what you want.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, but always consider that it acts as an enhancer. Well, the real key to the system are the Enochian calls, these prayers that they were given. Both the first time when they first started giving them, they wrote them out backwards because they were so powerful. If they told them forwards, and crazy things might happen. And then that took too long, so they just went ahead and did it anyway. But the real core of the system, the one piece that you have to have are the calls, which are prayers and this Enochian mysterious language that's sort of like a Proto-Hebrew. In theory, it's the language spoke before the fall of Babel.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have examined it and found that it is a real language, and some people have found the opposite, that it's not a real language. But there's really not enough there. I have a copy of the calls that I use. You guys might like to see that.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
This was really the first tool I made because I was doing a lot of Enochian calls and a lot of work with this. And when messing around with printouts and stuff in the dark was really just. So the Enochian angel said, look, if you're going to keep talking to us, you need to make your own copy of the calls. You can't be fumbling around with bad printouts in the dark. Make your own damn set of calls and let us know. Could they do that? They kind of put ideas in your head. So here's my grimoire for the calls.
That's
It's
beautiful.
Yeah.
I made the case myself out of stuff from the wooden stuff from the fabric store. And so it's designed to open with 4 triangles to represent the 4 elements, and the pattern on it is hexagram to represent the planets. Probably should replace the gold string because it's getting a little frayed from use.
That's a good sign, though.
Yes. So when I open it, opens. I wanted something special. I didn't want just a normal book.
Right.
So then when you open a grimoire, I always like to write a prayer in the beginning to read. And this is a simple one. This is from John D. Teach me, O Creator of all things, to have correct knowledge and understanding. For your wisdom is all I desire. Speak your word into my ear, O Creator of all things, and set your wisdom in my heart. Amen. That's taken from some of Dee's work. So here is the first call of spirit. I don't know. Kind of.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you see, that's a long one. Most of them are actually pretty short. And they are specifically designed to create very unique, specific trance states.
And they'll do that.
Yes. And whether or not you can be in a trance state and not realize it is the other thing to also consider.
That's right.
What do you mean by that? Can you explain that a little bit more?
When you read the Enochian calls, and a lot of times when you read any foreign language in a ritual, you're in a situation where something special is happening. You're using a language you don't normally use. You're doing things you don't normally do. It can bring you into a trance state. And if you're not aware, if you're not used to it, you can be in this sort of receptive, altered state and not be aware of it. Because in a lot of ways, it can be a very subtle shifting of your consciousness, and not a vast, like I'm at a rock concert and it's 120 decibels and everyone's jumping around. That's a very powerful shift in consciousness that you'll be very, very cognizant of. But reading an Enochian call, like I was just thinking if I could find a short one, like this one, the 16th call. It's a airy part of fire. That's actually pretty short. So the airy part of fire, that would be the Knight of Wands. So courage, charisma, excitement, things like that. It would put you in a trance state where you were more receptive to those sorts of concepts, and your mind would drift more in that direction. So it's a subtle change. And if you're not used to doing like meditation and practices where you watch your thoughts go by, you observe your thoughts, things like that, then you may not realize that you are even in a trance state. And so for a lot of times for beginners, they're doing this work and they're like, I don't know what's happening. Did something happen? What just happened? Right?
Mm-hmm.
I've seen people, like beginners, come to a ritual and have a great experience, but they'll walk away not sharing what happened to them. So that's why we study other things like meditation and stuff, where we sit and groundedly observe our own thoughts and things like that, so that we can be aware when we're in these trance states, which are required to contact these angelic forces, these circuits of divine intelligence. The part of the magic that makes it really cool and really useful is that you can target specific spiritual experiences at will. And so by using this alphabet of archetypal images of elements, so we study the 4 elements till we're ingrained, the 7 planets, we can combine those to create just the spiritual experience that we want. Do we want a spiritual experience of emotional healing? Or do we want to gain an understanding of why certain things are upsetting us? Do we want to manifest something in our lives and be aware of what we're doing that's preventing it from being manifested? We can drill down and create that very specific spiritual experience and have it and gain that insight that we're searching for. And so that's what really the point of all these tools and all this study and all this stuff is so that we have that ability to drill down. It's not to say that surprising things don't come up, you know, get insights that you didn't expect, but the creators, I kind of define magic as the ability to create specific spiritual experiences at will, which I'm sure a lot of people would disagree with me, but to me, that's really what the core purpose of it is. These sort of spiritual experience, you gain these insights, and when you do have this sort of level of awareness, when you're in contact with the air of water within you, it's in contact with the air of water of the universe, and you're aware of that, and you're like, you're good with it, that's when reality starts to become mutable, when it becomes soft, and that you can make changes and you can cause things to manifest through synchronicity and through things that just look like luck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a lot of talk about Enochian magic, and I love Enochian magic. I think it's a beautiful thing. But Erich, have you ever done any goetic magic?
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. I mean, the problem with Enochian magic is a honey trap. I mean, it's so easy, and the manifestations are so blazingly obvious, and the spirits are so easy to work with and so generous that you just get lost in it. And I use it really as a power source to power the other rituals that I do, because the beings will show up and power other rituals. They'll act as transformers for you. So you tend to get lost in it because it's just like being locked in, you know, a candy store. So yeah, I've done some goetic work. We have Visago as our house spirit.
I remember you guys telling me about that. The first time I came to your house, you told me about working with Visago and him taking care of you guys.
Oh yeah. We have a little here. He's right here. Hey Visago, come and say hi to everybody. Clean him off. Has incense all over him.
Yep,
so we have a little.
There it is.
Yeah, we have his. So I made this, the little disc from the craft store, and then drew his name and his sigil and gold leaf. And then I like to cover things with artist epoxy. It keeps them from getting ruined. And then we have his little sigil, and we offer him incense and every now and then. And then if we need something that's lost within the house, he's also helpful for divinations and ending arguments and things like that too. But he's wonderful to have around. I'm not so interested in the goetic list itself. What really interests me more are my own personal demons and learning to work with those. I met a Solomonic magician who, I believe he was from Scotland, and he was part of some really old tradition. And he was insistent that there was a 10-step process to goetic invocation. Most of the steps you would recognize. I mean, they're like in goetic of Dr. Rude. But you didn't go to anybody else's list of demons. You sat there and you called in and you waited to see who showed up. And each spirit that showed up, you would interview and bargain with. And I don't want to work with you, but yeah, you're okay. And also, so that to me is really a lot more interesting as a practice, because you build both with chthonic and also with the spirits that are sideways.
Yes.
Like the jinn that you work with.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, there are other Tibetan practices where you work with your own personal demons, and you work with those demons you feed them, basically. You say, look, what do you need? What do you need from me? And then you take care of them. And there's also, of course, a sacred book of magic of Abramelin.
Yes.
Right? So once you are in contact with your holy guardian angel, the angel comes down, merges with you, you have this moment of enlightenment. What's the first thing you do? You call up all the dukes of hell and organize them and give them things to do, right?
That's
So,
right.
to complete the circuit, you've been lifted up. You have to go to the lower aspects of yourself and raise them up as well to complete the circuit so that the energy flows. Just like in the Kabbalistic cross, the first thing you learn from above all the way down to the center of the planet. In magic, as you reach higher levels of spiritual development, you also have to work on your own personal demons. Otherwise, it doesn't work. It doesn't ground. You can't only be love and light. You also need to look at what your needs
Absolutely.
are. All the traumas that you picked up in your life.
100%.
And then have them working for you.
Damn Skippy.
Right.
Put them bitches to work, baby.
Put them to work. If they want to help. They want to be redeemed.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, Teresa.
Right. As above,
Absolutely.
so below. So that's really more my direction. I mean, if I like reading some of the Goetic writings and stuff like that, because the techniques and a lot of the prayers and stuff are fascinating. But I'm less interested. It's not as an organized system. It's not self-referential. Like, say, in Enochian, everything's very self-referential. If this up here is Earth of Fire, then that over there is Fire of Earth. And I know how the circuits work and how it's all put together. If you look, a lot of the listed demons, it's kind of, they don't fit together in a hierarchy, so to say. If they did, it might be a lot more interesting. And that might be a system worth developing. Of course, Enochian has its own sets of demons, blah, blah, blah. But that's a whole other.
But it's interesting because a lot of people, and I don't know what your feeling is on this, but a lot of people start out with Enochian first, and then they move into the Goetic realms. I actually did the reverse, of course. I started with the Goetics, demons, and then moved into the Enochian system. And it worked for me. I had no issues with it.
Sure. I don't see why you would. Crowley, when he published the first translation, the Goeta, that was done by McGregor Mathers, said something really odd about him. He said that these demons represent parts of your brain.
Yes, that's right.
And which is really strange because Crowley knew the difference between the brain and the mind.
Yeah.
Not an uneducated fellow. So
no, I mean, okay, here's the thing.
The brain.
I mean, there was some things to be desired with regards to his morality, but Crowley was an extremely intelligent man, and the man did have power.
Well, a lot of the immoral things that he did, we would not bat an eye at today. I mean, he was pansexual. He had sex with men and women. Today, we're like,
well, yeah, but
how is that a problem?
But eating human feces and calling it a success, that's an issue for me.
I don't know that that's really, because he spoke in metaphors.
That's nasty, man.
A lot of what he was talking about was in metaphors, and he intentionally, some to protect himself, but he intentionally hid it from people.
I think he really ate human feces. I think he did, Eric.
That's a dedication to the craft that I do not have.
I kind of doubt it. I think Crowley was the sort of person that would write in his magic book, eat human feces, just to see if people would do it and then laugh at him. Seriously. He would
you're probably right.
Do you know in the in that version of the Goetic the Goeta that he published, he put a big Greek invocation at the beginning of it. Right, so it's in Greek. It was actually a curse on Mathers, who had a falling out with. So all these people were like, "Oh, let me do my magic spell," and they're reading this thing in Greek because they don't know what it says, right?
And they were cursing Mathers.
Right, it's kind of juvenile crap that he could put in there as blinds for people.
Well, I don't know. Maybe he didn't eat human feces. Maybe it was all metaphorical. But I don't know, man.
I could just see Crowley then eat human feces and then hit yourself on the head with a big hammer, and then you'll see God, and to see if people would actually do it.
God help us all. Okay, so more so for you, Enochian, Goetia, not as much.
Not as much. The Goetic practices, as you're talking about the list of the 72 demons that were published, not as interesting to me as working with my own personal demons and making peace with them and turning them to something more productive. Because, you know, as a spiritual growth, you have to look at those things. You have to look at those negative aspects and take care of them, because really they represent injured parts of yourself, traumas that you had in early childhood, and things like when your needs weren't met, you felt threatened, things like that. And to me, that's really more, that has a lot more draw than some of the other ones. But I might have, a long time ago, it might have been more interesting to me then. But yeah, demons are fascinating. We should work with demons. It's probably more dangerous not to work with them than it is to work with them.
Yeah.
As far as working with your own personal demons, where would you suggest that one start? That's something in my path that I'm really working on, because I'm aware of a lot of my own personal demons and I'm working on healing those. Where would you suggest that either myself or a complete beginner start?
Honestly, therapy is the right answer to that question. And that's the first thing I should say, that if you want to begin working with your own personal demons and those parts of yourself that are wounded, you should find a good therapist. I should say that right now, as that's the best answer. Okay. Beyond that, there are different practices that you can do. You definitely need to first learn how to do meditation and be able to have a very good container. You need to be able to have a container and a strong sense of self, so that these sorts of things aren't going to take over or cause a lot of trauma in your behavior or to yourself. Because if you encounter that personal demon, it could re-trigger the whole situation that led to its creation, for it to sort of split off from your personality. And then you go into storyline and relive that experience. So you need to first do the angelic work and build up your sense of self, your container, and then look at that later when you're have a lot of spiritual strength. If it's something that you want to work with right away, then I would suggest a good therapist.
Yes, Teresa. Yeah.
Your meditation with the LBRP. Yeah, I mean, that will help, but I don't want to send people off, oh, just go do X, Y, and Z, and then your demons will show up, because that's really bad. You know, it's something that you, it's so easy to work with the angelic forces that I don't mind just spelling out how to do it, because I doubt anybody could ever have a bad experience there. But to work with your own personal demons, you need to have a lot of experience first, so that you don't end up
potentially triggering these things again.
Triggering them and reliving the experience that led to their creation in the first place. So what people do is they build containers. They build a strong sense of self. And they do spiritual practices for a few years. And then they're ready for that. And then when you're ready, the techniques will present themselves. The teacher will appear and you'll be able to do that kind of work.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
So, Eric, do you ever practice low magic, folk magic, any type of hoodoo folk magic, trolldom, anything like that? Are you strictly ritual, high magic?
So one time, we decided to put a protection spell on the house. Right? You got to put a protection on the house, spell on the house. You have to, right? If you're not, then what are you thinking? So we went and got 4 brand new, never used for anything else, mason jars, right? Everything has to be brand new mason jars. And I went and got some really nice Fimo clay, and we made 4 figures, one for each of the 4 elements. Like we made like a little red and yellow guy that was like fiery. And then
how long ago was this?
Not that long ago.
About 3 years ago, 4?
Yeah, 3 or 4 years.
I remember. you guys talking about that.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
So we made magic jars.
Hmm.
So we made our little homunculi, right? It's a homunculus, and we put them in the jars, and then we went around the yard and we picked flowers and stones and things from our yard that went with the 4 elements, and then I took a little piece of paper and wrote little sacred names and their names on them, rolled them up, sealed them, and put them in their hands, and then we sealed the jars, and we did a ritual to charge and give our little magic jars, our little guys, life. And their charge was to protect the property and the whole neighborhood non-violently. They couldn't use violence to solve any problem, but everything had to be protected. But no violence was allowed. And so we did the ritual.
Stop for 1 minute. Yes, Teresa. Hold on, Eric. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, Teresa.
Oh, okay.
Jars, and more jars, baby.
Right.
Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, we have 1 million of them here. So we did this big ritual, and an enormous thunderstorm kicked up all around the house. It didn't even rain where we were, really. Well, it did start to rain, but the thunderstorm was all around us. And so I had pre-dug holes, but it was raining too much, and it was late. I was like, okay, I'll put the jars, because we were going to put them in the 4 directions on the property, right?
Mhm.
So buried in the ground. So I was like, okay, I'll do it tomorrow. So I got up tomorrow, and there was an event that we had to go to. And so I went out and I started saying the final prayers, putting the jars in the holes I had dug. And our obnoxious neighbor that always was a pain in the butt, as I was putting the last jar into the ground in the north, pulled out of his yard with his trailer attached to his truck and just took off. Just left the neighborhood, and he was gone for like a couple of years.
Really?
Right, just as I was putting that last jar in the ground.
Holy cow.
It was like, and he was like booking it too. You know, he had this huge trailer attached to his truck, and he just took off and left. I was like, wow, it's so peaceful here without that obnoxious person.
It worked.
Yes.
Quickly.
So yeah, so we do hoodoo type things like that. And I probably do a lot of hoodoo-ish type low magic things without really even thinking about it.
Yeah.
To be honest.
I think a lot of people that do magic in general actually find themselves doing low magic, folk magic, hoodoo type magic without really even thinking about it. I mean, I do it all the time. You know, even sometimes in the way I breathe, I'll do it.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of breathing techniques and things that you want to do throughout the day. But yeah, there's a lot of hoodoo things like that I probably do without realizing it, as a way to manifest the spiritual connection that we have while we're in ritual. You know, one of the things that I find that's really important and useful is when I'm in that tornado of energy and consciousness of the ritual, to stop and see how I feel, what the feeling is in my body, you know, how I'm feeling, and try to remember that. And then when I'm not in ritual, I'm going through everyday life and yada, yada, be able to come back to that place. Like for instance, if we have a healing ritual that we do, when you're in that healing vortex, to remember that healing energy, that connection, what it felt like. And then when like someone says, oh, I have a headache, or can you Reiki my leg? I have a burn or something. Going back to that time and place where you were in ritual and that feeling to be able to bring it forward to the place that you're at for that little city of, say, healing somebody, something like that. To me, that is probably one of the most important aspects of it. The way that you bring it into everyday life is just that feeling, that body feeling that you had at that point in the ritual, to remember it as a way to go forward in time and be able to manifest that energy. And to me, that's kind of like my hoodoo, I would think.
Yeah, invoking that feeling that you had. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's very similar to like muscle memory.
Yeah.
Or the way there's these things in your brain called mirror neurons, and they're reason why when somebody else yawns, you yawn. And what they do is when you see an action, like if you ever see anybody get kicked in the nuts, you just go, "Ooh," because your brain sends this signal of like, I know what this pain feels like. And so you're essentially using that natural function of our brain in a magical setting.
Maybe that's the same principle of Jedi Force sorcery, you know? I mean,
well, I mean, the reason that Star Wars resonated so well with so many people is that they pulled it all from Joseph Campbell, right? Joseph Campbell, who came up with the hero cycle, the 22 stages of the hero's journey, this meta story that resonates with us because it's sort of all the stories that we tell each other. You know, the hero leaves on an adventure, meets with a teacher, you know, met with a challenger, goes to underworld, receives a boon, and then brings it back. 22 stages to the hero's journey, 22 major arcana in the tarot. Probably not a coincidence, that there is a direct correlation. And so Star Wars resonates with so many people because it taps into these sort of archetypal images and stories that, the Force, the thing that connects all living things, is power that flows between things. Like, it controls your actions. Yes, but it also obeys your commands. I mean, they didn't just pull that out of their butts like Lord of the Rings, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so it resonates.
I mean, that's obvious
on a very deep level.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some of the last movies were pretty bad, but the original ones, he was working with Joseph Campbell at the time, and so that's why it was so sparky.
Love it.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm just saying, I love it. I think that's great.
So tell us a little bit about the Rose Cross.
The Rose Cross, the one behind me on the wall?
Absolutely.
Okay. So when I was 18, when I was graduating from high school, I was doing a lot of art at the time. I still like to do art. And so somebody friend of the family, gave me a huge art box of stuff, a bunch of paints and canvas and stuff. So if you open up the big, humongous Golden Dawn book, don't have it nearby, there's a picture of the Rose Cross in there in black and white. And it's basically sort of a model of the universe. So you look at the top, it's obviously yellow for air, red for fire, blue for water, and the complementary colors, like the blue has orange. So if you stare at it and close your eyes, that you'll see the image in your head, or if you stare at you'll see the opposite image on the wall. Color complements, meaning color opposites. And then you have the hexagram with the 7 planets, and then the Earth with the 4, and then the middle are the Hebrew letters. This is basically a wheel for creating sigils. So you have the 3 Hebrew mother letters in the center, and then around that, the 7 double letters, 7, of course, 7. So it means 7 planets, right? Anytime you see 7. And then around that, the 12 simple letters, 12 signs of the zodiac, right? So they represent an element within one of the triplicities. I don't know if you can really see it, but there's alchemical symbols on the edges for sulfur, salt, and mercury. And then, of course, Inri around the center, the little spikes in the middle. So basically, it's a sigil that represents all the forces of the universe. This is a magician's palette. This is the paint that we use to create ritual meaning, so we can create all the different sorts of ritual meaning that we want. Planets, elements, signs of the zodiac, 3s, 4s, 7s, things like that. So I was like, sweet, I'm going to make this thing. So my grandmother left me one of those overhead projectors. So I projected this black and white thing onto this canvas. Yeah. And I was reading the book. It's like, okay, sort of a salmon pink. And, I started filling out the colors as I went. And then it ended up being this beautiful rainbow thing. It just sort of manifested on my wall. So then I did the background, because I don't like leaving empty space, as just a rainbow swirl representing all the different colors of energy swirling out of it. Sort of created an illusion of it floating too. But I did that when I was 18. It's held up.
Oh wow!
It's beautiful.
So you created that one when you were 18.
Hmm.
Oh wow, nice. Had a long time then.
Yeah, I've had it a long time. There's been times when it's been rolled up and put away. Most of the time, when I've been able, I've had a ritual space that I could put it up on the eastern wall, so that direction is east. And then I have this. She's made of ironwood from Jamaica. She's a really nice angel lady. She looks like she's holding a moon. And then this is an antique made out of zinc, actually, of a Mercury. So we have the masculine and the feminine, the twin pillars, so to speak. Most of the rituals, what we do, you start by facing east, because that's where the sun comes up.
Mm-hmm.
And then you do things facing the west, like you're going into the underworld,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So each direction has a lot of meaning, every action and stuff. So
Yeah.
But yeah, it's basically a model of the universe.
I like it.
Yeah,
I like your work.
thanks.
I've enjoyed the times I've been able to come to your house for your classes. I'm so busy right now, man. I haven't been able to even get on Zoom meetings with you guys, and I apologize for that. But we'll all catch up again soon.
Sure. Yeah, Sunday mornings are difficult for a lot of people. A lot of people have things going on Sunday mornings. But yeah, it's Ritual Magic Group, ESSG. We're in Tallahassee, Florida, and you can find us on Facebook. And people want to join. We're in a period of expansion right now. Would like to, maybe I can put the link to our page.
If you send me the link to it, I can put it up.
Yeah.
Can I post it in chat right here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I don't know how well that worked, but that's our Facebook group. If you're interested, you're welcome to join. There are just some basic questions about respecting people's privacy. It's very important to us that we don't mention who's in the group outside of the group.
Absolutely.
People need to have their anonymity. If you want to say, I'm in a Ritual Magic group and I learned the LBRP, that's fine. But you don't want to say Frank was there and Frank, because Frank may not want people to know. So that's kind of our main point of secrecy. But we have Sunday classes, Thursday rituals, and there's a lot of interesting stuff in the file section too. That I think.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well,
so
Erich,
I'll post that link to our Facebook page at the Wizards Table, so that if people are interested, they can join.
Okay, cool.
Hi, Alana.
Or you can click right there.
Yeah. All right, Erich.
Yes. Alana's the temple leader. She's the magister.
That's right. She's the real one in charge.
Yeah, she's the one that makes it happen. I just kind of show up and put on a dress and wave my arms around and croak in funny languages.
No, you guys are good. You guys are good people. You guys are awesome people.
Well,
and I'm honored and privileged to know you. And I'm very privileged to be welcomed by you guys. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you.
And so that's it for tonight. Erich, thank you so much for coming on. I wish we could have had more time, but that's the way the old ball bounces, right?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being on and answering all my questions. And I've learned so much. And I'm definitely going to go join the group and look into it.
Sure. And you can participate at whatever level works for you. If you want to come to Sunday classes, if you can't, you just want to see what we're posting, that's fine. It's there's no forced participation or requirements unless you want initiation. And then of course there are things that you have to accomplish to get the various levels of initiation.
Yeah. I want to work on that eventually, but when I have time to be more committed.
Sure. It's not like you don't have your own spiritual past. So
That's true, but I don't know. I'm just kind of crazy all over the place.
sure.
I am focused
Yes.
sometimes. But
Awesome. Well, thank you again
Thank
for
you,
joining
Eric.
us.
Thank
And
you.
thanks everybody who tuned in. We appreciate it. We'll be back and we'll let you know who our next guest is very soon.
Actually, I'll let you know right now.
Oh, okay.
Freya Oswin. The 15th, we have Rune Master. Yeah, damn it. She's a Rune Master. I don't give a shit what nobody says. Freya Oswin. Okay. She's Dutch. She lives in Spain. She has been an inspiration to me all my life. Freya Oswin. Nordic Witch. Rune Master. Freya Oswin. All right. There you go.
Awesome.
So, thank you, Eric.
Thanks.
Thank
Good night.
you.